let's get straight into your assessment of the voting process, because it seems that by and large we've got foreigners seeming to have seen this entire process as one that displayed transparency.
Well, what I can say is that in the run-up to the election, and we were here since mid-January observing all of the preparations that the Election Commission was making, as well as the election campaign and the preparations of the different stakeholders for these elections, that there was quite a wide degree of transparency in that run-up, with the preparation of the voter register, which was very key, and the cleaning of the voter register. And on election day itself, we also felt that there was a good degree of transparency for observers and also for party agents. Most polling stations, the vast majority, had party agents from different parties observing the process. So if they had a problem on the day with the results that were being tallied up by the polling station agents, they would have been able to say so, to collect that information, and to raise an objection at the time. On the tallying process, what we found was that the tallying locations were also open to observers and party agents for the most part to access, but it wasn't always possible to get close enough to the agents to really see what they were doing. That's a little bit, of course, that's a bit of a flaw. That's a problem for the Election Commission. And now what it has to do is to open up all of the documents that are public documents to anybody who has a challenge or a complaint, in order to actually verify that that their complaints are justified or not, and that's something for the courts to decide.
Well, within this context, Gillian, as we've seen, we've got Raila Odinga's coalition having said that the group is obviously considering this legal petition to challenge the count. In your books, is that warranted?
Well, I think when you're talking about a vote for 12 million, over 12 million people, there's always a possibility that mistakes have been made, or that the tallying process hasn't been perfect. So if they have complaints, I think that they certainly have the right to have those complaints heard and dealt with expeditiously and robustly by Kenya's Supreme Court, which I'm pleased to see retains very much the trust of all of the stakeholders.
Well, this certainly marks a change from 2007, where we saw Odinga losing but not pursuing a legal route that time around, because he said that the judiciary could not be trusted. Let's say it all plays out according to plan, and we've got President-elect Uhuru Kenyatta taking to the helm. Many saying posing a dilemma for Kenya's big Western donors, because he's due, of course, to go on trial at The Hague on charges of crimes against humanity, and that linked to the violent aftermath that ensued the 2007 elections. What do you see this doing to sentiment right now? Because it would seem that we're still standing on pretty shaky ground.
Well, we have now a 7-day period since the announcement. It's just to kind of correct something in that Reuters report. After the 7 days for the petitioners, the court has 14 days after that. So we are possibly looking at a period until the end of this month before we have a clear decision from the Supreme Court on whether they will reject these elections or reject the petitions, if there are any. We still haven't seen them. I would say the reaction of the international community is difficult for me to assess. We are here as observers to observe the process, but I understand that they have said that they will respect the will of the Kenyan voters. So let's wait and see what the Supreme Court decides, whether the petitions go ahead, and whether these elections are going to be confirmed by Kenya's electoral and legal institutions.
Overall, this poll was being seen as a critical test for Kenya, of course, after its reputation as a stable democracy was damaged by the bloodshed that came after the 2007 election. Do you see its reputation being restored? What kind of status do you see Kenya now holding?
Well, what was absolutely clear to us from the beginning of our observations is how much work and how many people were striving towards a credible, peaceful and transparent election in Kenya to really overcome the shadow cast by the 2007-2008 violence following the elections in that time. And I would say that, that Kenyan public and Kenyan stakeholders have to be congratulated on having achieved a peaceful election. And the credibility will be established by courts and by constitutional rights that have been introduced since that period, which is also a tremendous achievement. So I would say Kenya has done remarkably well in a very short period.